Tease the tease the tease. Something that us Mets fans know far too well and far too often, and we have a lot of breakdown in what was yet again another deflating, very frustrating, and absolutely brutal loss at Citi Field for the New York Metropolitans as they dropped their Game 2 of a 3-game set against the San Diego Padres by a final score of 7-4. Starling Marte hit a home run. Pete Alonso hit a home run. Juan Soto should have had 2 home runs, but settled with 1. Francisco Alvarez just poked one oppo, and it was not enough for this Mets team. The Mets, who now have 14 games this season with 4 home runs or more, the most in their team franchise history, dropped their 3rd game this season with 4 home runs or more, all thanks to David Peterson throwing a pitch that he simply should not have done on a full count. It was a great hit there by Manny Machado, no question, but a grand salami to dictate this ball game has me absolutely gutted. David Peterson is now averaging 4.6 runs allowed over his past 5 starts. He is showing you exactly why he's not a starter. This Mets team can really rely on come postseason play, but playoffs? What do you mean playoffs for a Mets team right now that cannot get consistency going if it smacked them across the face? A lot of breakdown in tonight's Mets post-game show as I, Wardy, here, am going to break down extensively everything that happened, win, lose, and draw, and this one as the Mets again faltered. We're going to go top to the first all the way to the final out of the 9th. Juan Soto, what a comebacker, ends this ball game, but that is not the whole story. Juan had some quality at-bats. This Mets offense was not putrid by any stretch. Against a Nick Pivetta that's been nails this season, the Mets stayed afloat and they stayed in this ball game. And while their offense we would have loved to see more out of, it is really hard to climb back when you were down not just 1 run, not just 2 run, but let's make it at least 3-4 runs at minimum that the Mets were down early in this ball game because David Peterson could not get out of his own mess. A lot of breakdown in this one, everybody, and no, I'm not happy to get into it because how can I be happy to get into it as a Mets fan? I've known losing far too well this season. I'm sick and tired of it the same way that each and every one of you watching live on a replay is sick and tired of the same outcomes, the same ways that this Mets team finds their ability to lose. They have solo home run galore, no offense in between a show, get oh so close to tying a ball game. It feels like there's at least one almost home run every single month by Juan Soto, or is it fair or foul? And it just one foul off Mason Miller there in the 8th inning. What could have been? Shoulda, coulda, woulda there in the 8th inning. Would have tied the ball game. Instead, Ryan Stanek gives up a meatball because why wouldn't he? To kickstart the top of the 9th inning, that was the final dagger in this Mets coffin, which was a baseball game for them. A Mets team that had an opportunity to secure some ground there in the wild card standings on the Arizona Diamondbacks, on the San Francisco Giants, on the Cincinnati Reds. Instead, do nothing of it and make sure that this thing has to be 10 times sweatier than it otherwise should be. Still just 1.5 games up on Arizona, 2 games up on the Reds, 2 games up on the Giants. A victory today would have had the Mets a full game up more than where they currently stand against all these opposing teams. And while I don't hate the Mets' odds of making playoffs, all it takes is more blunders by the rotation really have you shaking in your boots. And speaking of rotation, you guys see the man there beside me. I love Jonathan, Mets' top pitching prospect at the young age of 22, but Jonah got rocked and was shaking in his boots there and couldn't even get out of his own mess beyond .2 innings the last time he towed the rubber. He now is tasked with towing the rubber for the series finale day game, a game in which this Mets team has rolled over and died 10 times out of 10 it's felt this season. Can they rewrite this story? Can they secure the series W tomorrow? Something that they've done so few and far in between this year, even at Citi Field here in the second half. We're just going to have to wait and see, everybody, but do not hold back from telling me your frustrations, your biggest takeaway from the Mets floundering this one. A key opportunity to gain more ground in the standings today. An offense that I honestly did not hate for the most part today. It wasn't perfect, but it certainly could have been 10 times worse. I appreciate the home run ball, but I said to myself early in this ball game, the Mets are not going to win this ball game if they're relying on solely the solo shots. And unfortunately for them, the Mets were what am I saying here? They were incapable, rather, of trying to get a home run with more than 1 runner on base. They were not able to get the doubles down the first base or third base line. They could not go into the gap. They just did not have enough against Nick Pivetta and a Padres team that knew that they had one swing, one opportunity. And as Gary Cohen said it himself best in this broadcast today, on a full count with bases loaded there in the final inning of work for David Peterson today, this is the biggest pitch of the ball game. What's going to happen? The 3-2, he sets. It's high, it's far, and it is out of here. A grand salami for Manny Machado as the biggest standout of this ballgame, everybody, as the Mets go on to lose this one 7-4. Let's get into getting all your comments, questions, and concerns. Let's break down this ballgame, everybody. But first and foremost, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe on your way, and I greatly appreciate that, as that's a fantastic way to support the platform. Help us get to 35,000 subscribers, folks. We cover the Mets independently here on YouTube as the #1 Mets-related platform since its start here back in December of 2020 when Steve Cohen first became owner. We cover every single game throughout the course of the 162 and playoffs and everything else in Mets land, everybody. And we have a lot of breakdown in this one, and we're giving away a Mets jersey to one lucky subscriber once we hit 35,000 subscribers on the platform, and we're just around 200 subs away. So continue to smash those buttons if you enjoy the following Mets content that we're going to unveil here, everybody, as well as if you want to save some dollars. I know the Mets were not able to get the job done today, but SeatGeek most certainly can for all of your ticketing needs. Head over there and utilize our promo code WARDY10, link down below in the description today. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. That is again WARDY10, WARDY10 for 10% off your next ticket purchase, whether it's Mets tickets in their final homestand of the year, whether it is going to be NHL tickets with preseason right around the corner, whether it's going to be any NBA tickets with a season right around the corner. Maybe you're a big NFL buff and you want to get set for this big Sunday and Saturday a matchup. So whatever you need, everybody, on the ticketing space, we have you covered. We're awesome friends at SeatGeek. And sadly, the Mets did not have us covered in the one column yet again today. And as Dave with a $5 donation says in the chat here, thank you so much, my guy. Hi, Tyler. Just to let you know, there's one item in the P.O. box. Thank you kindly for that, Dave. I'll make sure to check it out. Dave, I just realized I still even haven't shouted you out for the latest things you sent my way. I sincerely apologize. What I'll do, Dave, is I'll head to the P.O. box, barring changes tomorrow, hopefully, and I'll combine it all together and I'll show it in future content regardless of win, lose, or draw for the team. The Mets have lost way too much lately, and that's why I haven't shown the latest things you sent, because I want to be on a positive note, but we didn't do it after the victory. So that's on me. I'll make sure I make up for it. And Dave, thank you so much again for everything that you sent my way. I really appreciate it. KC, great member here in the chat with a $10 donation, states the following: for the positive fans I've seen, I genuinely hope you guys get at least one late comeback before the season is over. You guys have tried manifesting it all year, and you deserve it. Otherwise, I 100% understand, Casey. Thank you so much for the donation. I know a lot of fans are tapped out. I don't blame you. And it's impossible for someone like me to be tapped out, not just because I cover the Mets for a living and I'm a diehard fan, but it comes back down to this. When the Mets are still in the thick of it, in the playoff race, even just 4 games above 500, I got to yap about them every single day, because they're going to be in this thing until the very end if it wasn't abundantly clear by now. So because of that reason, I will live and die with this team. I will absolutely have my overreactions. I will absolutely have my moments of really appreciating the moment, but there have been little things to appreciate about this Mets team lately. Having said that, however, while I am very discouraged with what we got from David Peterson today, as we're going to break down extensively my final line grade for David, who allows 6 runs across 6 hits and has a just under 4 ERA now on the season. Dominic Hamill made his major league debut today and got out of his own mess while allowing 3 hits. Believe it or not, he did a great job getting out of it. We saw Gregory Soto do the job. Ryan Helsley was fine somehow, some way. Ryan Stanek most certainly wasn't. We're going to get into all the pros and cons on the pitching, but while there was most certainly cons on the pitching today, headlined by David Peterson, there was also pros that we saw today, headlined by some of the aspects of this Mets live today. Starling Marte back to the DH position there, batting 5th, did not look terrible by any stretch, had himself a big bomb in the left to keep the Mets within this ball game. Mark Vientos did not get the start in today's game after going 0 for his last 10, but okay, let's go ahead and bring him ice cold in the ball game and a 1-out situation. I was fearful of a double play ball. That did not happen, but he did not produce during the 9th inning, which I'm not surprised to see, because Marky V is a guy that we know has thrived within the lineup, and I don't really see why you would have him out today, even with the matchup against Nick Pivetta, even with his struggles as of late. Vientos has still been one of the most clutch and most reliable batters for the Mets over the past north of 2 calendar months now. There's very little reasoning to sit that man on the bench right now, regardless of what Marte did today, and Beatty did look good. I'm not trying to discredit those guys, but unfortunately, again, a scenario where who knows what could have happened if Beatty got the start at second, Vientos got the start at third, even though we know he can be a liability there, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, just for the sake of maximizing the Mets offense right now, because Jeff provided nothing. McHitz who had himself a 2-run McDouble down the first baseline yesterday, was unfortunately able to get nothing going against Nick Pivetta and this Padres squad. And listen, the Padres came out and they balled out with their bullpen today. They not only had Marajón out there, we saw Mason Miller, we saw Robert Suarez, we saw the gauntlet of this Padres bullpen. And I didn't hate every at-bat that I saw by this team, all things considered. A lot of close ones, and that Juan Soto one is going to live rent-free in my head until we find out what the conclusion of tomorrow's matchup is, with Jonathan towing the rubber for his, fourth career start now, right? Because he had Miami, then Cincy, then Rangers, and now he's going to have tomorrow against San Diego. Again, it's a tall task for the Mets, have to lean on the 22-year-old right-hander, and that start's going to be pivotal, I think, for the future of Jonathan staying on this roster, because Kodai Senga, for those that are unaware, makes his likely final start in AAA Syracuse tomorrow in the Lehigh Valley, which I'm not going to lie is right around the block for me. For those that don't know, I'm a PA resident, so I actually plan on attending tomorrow's ball game between the Syracuse Mets and the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, the AAA affiliate for the Phillies. Carson Bench hit a home run today off Andrew Painter, if I'm not mistaken, one of the top pitching prospects in the game, and Bench, who was just named Mets Minor League Hitter of the Year. Love me some Carson Bench. Cannot wait to see him in person, but I will give you guys an inside look firsthand how good or how bad Kodai Senga look tomorrow there from the ballpark itself. We will make content that I will make into a video or a live stream that I'll drop either later tomorrow night or early the next day before we get set for the next series for this Mets team. So because Kodai Senga is set to return to this Mets team, barring a complete blunder tomorrow against the AAA affiliate for the Phillies, now the Mets are going to have some tall tasks and some tall questions. David Stern spoke to the media over the past day, and he did reiterate and make it known that anything is on the table for this Mets team in their rotation now, meaning that when looking at guys like, even to a degree, Jonathan, David Pearson, Clay Holmes, no one is off the table to potentially be utilized as a reliever. Brandon Sproat, Dylan Ross, one of the Mets' top arms right now in AAA. The list goes on and on. The Mets are going to do whatever they think is best for the rotation moving forward, and whatever they can do to get long relief as well. Peterson continues to show that he's nothing more than a 5-and-dive starter in the second half of the season, a man who's averaged just under 5 runs over his past 5 starts. If Ton does decide to ball out tomorrow, the Mets are going to be favoring the hot hand here. So there's a lot at stake with Tom performing, as well as David continuing to underperform. Just how more of a leash are the Mets going to give him? Are the Mets in dire need of the fact that they don't have any better options at Pearson, which is why he still looks like a guy that could start if, say, the wild card series began tomorrow and he was in that 3-headed gauntlet of a rotation setup? I'm not exactly sure, but what I am sure of is that the Mets really don't have a lot of great options right now. And while Kodai Senga can go out and ball out tomorrow in that final start in AAA, there's a reality where he doesn't, but if he does, that is not a guarantee that that'll transition to the major league level. I certainly hope it is, but Senga has been a shell of himself since returning from his latest injury this season. And if you decide to call up Senga within the next couple days, say after this start, and get him set for the next turn in the order, or utilize as a reliever, and he gets rocked, then we are out of time this season, folks. The Mets now have, 9 or so games to spare on the year. We are just a week and a half away from talking about the Mets season coming to an end and either having just missed playoffs or getting set for a gauntlet of a wild card matchup. We will wait and see what happens in the next week and a half, but right now we are seeing more of the same. A rotation that's far from stable and a Mets offense that's far from consistent. These lack of consistencies in one is exactly why the Mets sit here today, 4 games above 500, to have such a brutal record going back to the middle of June. I need things to change. I want things to change just as much as the next Mets fan, but I'm still longing to see it. The consistency yet again has simply not been there. Jonah with a $5 donation. Thank you, Jonah. That 5th inning was the 100% the epitome of the Mets season. Opposing team loads the bases without a ball leaving the infield, which leads to a huge inning. And the worst part of it for Peterson is that it came down to one pitch for him today. He otherwise did not pitch terrible today. It was just a lot of bloops and dunks and infield singles. It was not much hard contact at all, but he made one great mistake, and that was allowing a pitch to be hit at all in the zone against Manny Machado. And I know you got to attack him. It's bases loaded, full count. Manny's one of the best hitters in all of the National League, has been for a hot minute, but by God, the Mets needed to get out of that inning unscathed, or at minimum, not a grand slam. Out of all the possibilities that could have transpired there in that inning, it had to be literally the worst thing imaginable for this Metropolitan Baldwin club. That has been the story of their season in a nutshell. It has been simply not getting what us fans have been longing to see. Oh my God, just how close Juan Soto was to a game-tying opposite field home run off of Mason Miller in the 8th inning, mind you. This close, a hair shy of hitting the pole that would have tied it. That would have not only had Citi Field erupting, but that would have gave them all the momentum, and you and I can both agree the Mets likely would have won that ball game because it's about momentum, especially late in the ball game. The Mets are now 0-63 this season when trailing entering the 9th inning. It's putrid, it's pond scum, it's pathetic. And I get it. Asking for 3 runs in one single inning with the final 3 outs you have is easier said than done. But by God, this Mets team does not have a clutch gene or a backbone in their body to save their life. And that too has been a great frustration for many fans, including myself, this season. But enough of me nitpicking all the bad. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons because, as I mentioned, there were some pros today that I do want to highlight. I think there are some things to not be overly upset about, but in the grand scheme of things, it's hard not to be deflated. It's hard not to be frustrated because, as I just relayed, and as you know, we only got a week and a half left of baseball this season, everybody. There is not much more else to be had here. So it's put up or shut up time, and unfortunately, the Mets continue to shut up. They're not putting up the way that we need them to. Great issues, to say the least, my friend. Great issues. All right, Wardy, did you see my message? Mario, I did not. Let me go ahead and see if I can check it real quick before we continue on in this one. Let's see. Should they rest Peterson? Also will be at the game tomorrow. Me and my sister are going to be in left field. Also, work party was amazing. Won a hat and a Senga jersey. I love to hear that, my guy. I'm happy that you won the Senga jersey. Hopefully, he can go back to being the Kodai of old starting tomorrow in his final start for Syracuse. But to answer this, should they rest Peterson? How long are you going to rest Peterson for? You know, I get it. The counter with David is that he's had the most innings by far in his young career this season, but at the same time, we need him. You know, we've needed a guy like Peterson to be who he was in the first half. Who he was in the first half was what we saw all of last year from June on for David Peterson. A starter that can come in and give you an absolute lockdown of at least 6-7 innings every 4th or 5th day. And what was so pivotal about prime Peterson at his best is that even though he's not going to strike you out north of 10 batters every night, he's going to find the ways to get the outs. He's going to take advantage of a great Mets infield headlined by Francisco Lindor, Brett Beatty, and McNeil making those strong turns. He's really going to lean on them to have his success. But Peterson, that we have seen in the second half this season, has been a shell of himself. He's had a couple outings in which he's given us 6+ innings or so, but they've been a couple. More often than not, Peterson has not went beyond 5 or so innings when we look at his past 5 starts or so. And more often than not, Peterson has been getting absolutely rocked for at least 1 or 2 brutal long balls that would be the demise for him if he's not walking everybody and their mother. So thank you for that. Jonah with the $2 holla. D-backs loss. That's our plus for tonight. I get it, but who did they lose to? They lost to the San Francisco Giants. So it only changes so much right now, given the fact that San Fran is also right at the Mets' heels right now for that final wildcard spot. And as we saw, guys, in this ball game, it began there in the first inning. Let's recap it together briefly. There's, like I said, plenty to get into in this one. In the first, right away, David Pearson's getting rocked early. Gives up a single to Fernando Tatis Jr. He then walks Luis Arraez, who has one of the best eyes in baseball. Then Gavin Sheets with a little sac fly to center makes it a quick 1-0 San Diego lead. In the bottom of the first, the Mets were quick to tie it, which was nice. After 2 outs, as Soto and Lindor were not able to get anything going against Nick Pivetta. Mind you, Nick Pivetta entered today's game as one of the best starters that we have seen all in the National League this year, and he gives up a big long ball, 112 miles per hour off the bat for the polar bear and Pete Alonso, who smokes his 36th home run this season there to left, and that would make it a 1-1 tied ball game at the time. That was Alonso's 36th home run, 409 feet there for Mr. Alonso, who has now 3 home runs in his past 3 games. From there, we get ourselves to the second inning where right away the Padres retaliate and they respond right back. We would see Jake Cronenworth Crony with a 1-out RBI single, which makes it a 2-1 Padres lead right away. This one goes up the middle to Cedric Mullins yet again. Elias Diaz would grab into a double play, which would thankfully end the inning, but not before the Padres are back up this time 2-1. In the next half inning, we would see Brett the Hitman, Brett Baty, who entered today's game with an 870 OPS now in the second half of the season, batting just under 300. He has been nothing short of brilliant and Mr. Consistent, along with Mark Vientos, among others that we have seen more in the second half this year. Baty had a 3-hit game. He looked really good today. I'm not complaining with Brett the Hitman at all. Baty, after hitting his 17th home run of the year that we saw a day or so ago, he smacks his 13th double of the year that we saw here for Brett Baty. That put him in scoring position, but unfortunately, Alvarez would line out to Tatis to right, and that does it for the innings. Something that I noticed a lot with Alvarez since returning from injury is that while we have seen some of the power has been opposite field. Alvarez is deferring far more back to hitting for Oppo than he was pulling the baseball as confidently, as prominently as he did from his latest minor league stint. That's a little bothersome for me, just because I'm not complaining about him getting opposite field home runs the way that he did today, but we know that Alvarez's game is through and through as a pull hitter. That's where you're going to get the most max out of power with someone like him. So for Alvarez to showcase less of that and more all for Fields, usually I would love this, but in today's game and in this season, I actually don't, because that reminds me more of what we saw with Alvarez earlier this year when he was more of a shell of the batter that we need him to be. Again, I'm not complaining about his home run today. That was great steps, baby steps in the right direction for sure, as he continues to work his way back, not only from his injuries, but also getting drilled right in the elbow area to conclude yesterday's ball game. He's back in there today like a champ, even with the welt there that he probably has on that left arm. I love Alvy. I love everything about El Troll, but I would love to see him pull the baseball more, because I know that is going to be the best for him and his game when we look at more of the power implementation, with the exception of today, because I realize that today is not the right thing to say, because he did have power opposite field that we saw. In the bottom of the third inning, after David Peterson works a clean inning in the top of the third, we see Francisco Lindor with a 1-out single, but that's all she wrote there for the inning. We find ourselves in the top of the fourth. It's a 1-2-3 for the Padres and for David Peterson. He gets a big strikeout on forward Mr. Madden OMG himself and Jose Iglesias, as he would strike out to end the inning. In the bottom of the fourth, we would see Starling Marte with his 9th home run of the year absolutely demolish that baseball. No doubt about it to left. 110 off the bat, 418 feet there. A meatball served up by Nick Pivetta, 93 down the pipe. What do you think's going to happen? Marte fastball's hitting is absolutely going to smoke that. That tied the ball game again. Again, this Mets offense was resilient early on in this one. They were having the comeback kid mentality, but they could not get the comeback kid mentality going for too long here, as obviously Peterson's long ball that he gave up would be the demise. Juliet with the $5 donation. Thank you, Juliet. It was important for the Giants to win today. Their Mets have tiebreaker against them. Best possible outcome given the situation. No, you're right. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying it's a shame that on a day where the Mets even gained some ground on the wild card, they do nothing with it. You know, they could have been 3 games up and then 2.5 games up on the other one. Instead, now we're 1.5 up and then 2 again. Marte made it a tied ball game. We then get to the next half inning. Cronies with a hit by pitch right away. Tatis gets on with a 1-out walk. Arise with a single there. Mind you, a little ground ball, a bunt single, because Baty was playing deep at third. The one criticism you could have towards Baty today was playing deep on Arise, who will do anything and everything as advantage to make sure he gets on base. Base is loaded. It's a full count to Manny Machado. And what happens? Manny Machado, grand salami, the dagger of the ball game is what happens. And the worst part of it all, everybody, is that it wasn't a terrible pitch by Peterson by any stretch, but it still was just enough in the zone to be the difference maker. Think I'm kidding? Take a look at it along with me, guys. See that pitch number 6 there at bottom of the zone? Curveball, just touching a little too much of the plate. That is all Manny Machado needed to pull that bad boy all the way to left. 102 off the bat, 401 feet. Machado's 26th home run of the year and his biggest home run for the Padres yet, you could rightfully argue, this season. That grand salami gives the Padres a 6-2 lead, and I said, like what every Mets fan said in that very moment, and one, it was an F-bomb for certain. And then secondly, it was another day, another start by David Peterson in which he cannot get the job done for us in the second half. And this one is one of those starts where if you did not watch the ball game, if you did not understand the context of this ball game, if you just looked at the box score, you would see that Peterson was dog water this whole time out, but he wasn't. That's what makes this all the more frustrating. David was looking rock solid until he wasn't. But yet again, the 5th inning being the demise of David Peterson is a massive problem, is this is a shell of a man who would be able to cruise through 5, give you 6, and at times give you 7 or 8. Now we look at a David Peterson in which we're lucky if we can get 5 solid innings out of right now, which has been the story of this entire rotation. No stability, no length, no consistency, and more important than anything else, little to no trust. The fact that we're relying on Brandon Sproat and Noah McLean, and now with his A+ ERA tomorrow, Jonathan, to be our saving graces, shows you how much this Mets team has failed in more ways than one with their pitching staff throughout the course of the year. Because after Pearson exits this ball game, Dominic Hamill will come in. Dom, for those that don't remember, Dom, I actually interviewed here on the platform with my previous Mets podcast with Joe Serralo and former Mets catcher and current MLB Network analyst Anthony Recker, and our previous Mets podcast at the time when it was Believe in Queens, and then we changed the name there to I'm trying to blank, Queens Corner. We interviewed Dom Hamill after the 2022 season because he was the Mets pitcher of the year in the minor leagues. Dom finally made his major league debut today. He got the job done, but a terrible stat I saw on the broadcast I need to relay to every single one of you, everybody, is the following. Dominic Hamill was the 46th pitcher used by the Mets this season. If you're wondering why that number 46 is significant, it's because it has now set a major league record for the most pitchers utilized in one singular season by an organization. So, in case you guys are wondering, as David Stearns' philosophy worked here in his second year as president of baseball operations when it comes to the constant rotation of different relievers as well as to a degree in starters. No, it has failed flat on its face, and that is nothing to be proud of. I don't care what anyone says. And as someone who's a David Stearns truther, I will tell you I'm far from satisfied to see that kind of statistic. It just shows you the incompetence and the inconsistency in which the Mets have had with their troubled bullpen throughout the majority of the year, and a rotation that has obviously been fickle going all the way back to early to mid-June. These things have not changed for the most part, with the exception of the young prospects that we have longed to see called up. 2 of the 3 have worked out, 1 has not, and the one that has not worked out, we now have to lean on to be the difference maker in securing a series victory against a San Diego Padres club that is currently on top of the Mets for that second wildcard spot across Major League Baseball. Not loving this. I got to be honest with you. I wish I was loving it. Jonah, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. I'm never going to ask people to donate, but I greatly appreciate your kind words there and for being a continued supporter. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate that. I do have the Venmo on my actually connected to the YouTube channel. If anyone wants to check that out, you just got to go to the YouTube channel, go to the channel description if it's not in the description of the live show. I do have my Venmo there for you guys to check out as well. Again, I'm never asking though. I appreciate it, but please know that's literally the last thing I'm asking from anybody. Just know how much I appreciate the fact that we have thousands of people every single night that want to hear what this schmuck has to say about the New York Mets. Thank you guys again for hitting that like and subscribe button on your way in. Coming in here for our latest Mets postgame show presented by our amazing sponsors there at SeatGeek that have you covered when it comes to all of your ticketing needs. My guy Pat is in the chat. Pat and I, we're trying to get some UFC 322 tickets that drop early in the AM tomorrow there for that MSG card. That's very exciting. We're probably going to swing and miss just like the Mets swung and missed on securing a series victory tonight, but we'll wait and see what happens there. Pat, thank you so much for being here with a $2 donation. The Mets rotation needs a Drake-type length. No, they do not. If the Mets want a Drake-type length, they would stick with what they've had because they're not getting anything beyond a couple centimeters of length right now. You know the drill there, Pat. You've probably seen it by now, you crazy schmuck. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Pat is as unhinged as ever, hence the name. As we continue on here in the live show, everybody, the Mets again were down 6-2 in this ball game, and they would start to claw back. Little by little, they would find themselves still within this ball game, which is why you couldn't count them out right away when they gave up that home run. As we continue on here, and Pat, I actually haven't seen it, my guy. It tells me a lot more about you than it does about me. As we continue on here in the bottom of the 5th inning, after Ramon Oriano got on with a walk, and that's all she wrote after the grand salami by Manny Machado, we see Juan Soto step up, and Juan Soto absolutely demolishes a breaking ball driven to right, liner of a home run, and Juan Soto, just like that, has tied the most home runs he's ever had in a calendar season, tying 41, in which he had just a year ago in his one-and-done year with those New York Yankees, something that our buddy Pat in the chat knows very well as an unfortunate Yankees fan. His 41st home run of the year would make it a 3-run deficit for the Mets, but they're still in this ball game. That's what I was telling myself, at least. Shame on me for buying the fool's gold yet again, a day that ends in Y. Pete Alonso then, right after, would get on with a single, so the Mets are getting the line going. going, and they get what we see Nick Pivetta out of this ball game, and less than 6 innings, mind you. Adrian Marajón comes in, though, and that's the problem. Marajón is one of the nastier southpaws in the game. Of course, the Mets are going to struggle there. Brandon Nimmo, who usually eats up lefties, had nothing to show in that matchup as he would go down in this one. And we then head to the 6th inning where Dom Hamill comes in. He allows a hit by pitch to Elias Diaz. He gives up a single to Fernando Tatis Jr., and then he gives up a single to Luis Arraez. But thankfully, we would see that be an inning ender, as a matter of fact, because Diaz would get to third, but we would see Arraez out at second on the throw there, which would be absolutely massive, and we would get out of that unscathed. So a crazy blunder that happened that goes in the Mets' favor. They take advantage of it, and Dom Hamill works his first scoreless inning of his young career. Hopefully there's more of that there for Dom. I'm wishing him well. Wasn't a pretty inning, but it got the job done and kept the Mets in this ball game still, only down a couple as we then head to the bottom of the 6th. And the bottom of the 6th, the Mets roll over. They go 1-2-3 offensively. In the 7th inning, Manny Machado, yet again, coming to torch the Mets, this time with a single that he would have. Then Gregory Soto comes in the ball game there for Dominic Hamill, and he would give up a single to Ramon Laureano. Laureano was such a pest against this Mets team. What a great trade deadline pickup by the Padres, too. You have to tip the cap. I knew that Laureano would have been a nice bat fit for the Mets, but the reason why the Mets weren't going to do it is because Ramon Laureano hasn't had any center field reps this season during his time with the Orioles. Up until then, he was traded to the Padres. Unfortunately for the Mets got the luck of the draw. They got the worst aspect of an outfielder traded by the Orioles this year. They traded Ramon Laureano that we saw to the Padres. They also traded first base DH corner outfielder when needed Ryan O'Hearn. Two guys who have been productive for the Padres, especially Laureano. For the Mets, they settled with Cedric Mullins, who, while Ceddy did hit his 17th home run of the year or so yesterday, has been so Jekyll and Hyde in any kind of production that he's provided for the Mets over the past month and a half since he arrived here on August 1st of this season, right around the trade deadline. After Laureano's single, Jack Samaro would strike out swinging, and then Manny would steal as well, and then a pass ball by Alvarez is what caused that steal to happen, everybody. And give me 1 second, because of course my entire computer just had a freeze on me, because God forbid I'm allowed to have nice things today. What do you mean, page unresponsive? How about you go F yourself, you schmuck? I need you to work right now. And instead, the page has nothing to show. Okay, all right, we can play this game. I can do this. Let's go ahead and let's go back to where we were. They're throwing me off. They don't want me to break down this ball game for you, everybody. And again, I don't blame them, because in part, I don't want to break down this ball game as well. It's definitely been frustrating cover this Mets team as they continue their losing ways this season. However, they're still right in the thick of it, and because they're in the thick of it, and because they're not out of this one yet, we got to talk about every aspect about this Mets club, including what happened there after the Mets obviously had themselves that inning. Because as we continue on later on this ball game, everybody, we would see in the 6th inning, nothing. In the 7th inning, nothing. In the top of the 7th, we would get out of that one, even with a Jose Iglesias walk, which allowed a couple runners on, still did not matter. In the bottom of the 7th, we would see Francisco Alvarez, upon review, smack his 9th home run this season, his 2nd home run over the past week, which you love to see. Alvarez, who's finally starting to get more of that home run swing, returning from his latest ailments to his left broken pinky finger, as well as his partially torn UCL in his right thumb that requires surgery at the remainder of this, pardon me, not remainder, but at the end of this year, rather, once he's done with playing. Alvarez puts the Mets right back in this one. They're only down by 2. Cedric Mullins, speak of the devil, gets on with a walk, and then we would see Mason Miller come in the ball game. Seti then steals his 22nd bag of the year, has had a lot of stolen bags for the Mets this year. I will make note of that. He has not done a lot for this team, but he has been good with his base running. That has been a positive. Then we see Juan Soto called out on strikes on the slider, borderline, but was still a called strike there. This comes just after missing an opposite field game-time home run off of Mason effing Miller by a literal hair. Then Pete Alonso strikes out swinging, and what was a terrible at-bat by Pete. I did not like anything about Alonso in that at-bat. He was completely bulldozed by Mason Miller, who's one of the best relievers in the game. In the bottom of the 8th inning, because the Padres do nothing in the top of the 8th, the Mets roll over and die. Ryan Helsley, yes, you heard that correctly, worked his scroll setting today while the Mets were only down by a couple. Yes, believe it or not, Ryan Helsley was not the man to give up runs from this Mets bullpen today. No, it would be the other not-so-reliable right-hander in this bullpen. And notes that Reed Garrett, we're talking Ryan Stanek. Stanek comes in, and he gives up a 2-out bomb to Ramon Laureano. Laureano, who's making just a couple $1 million this year, just like a former Padre turned Yankee now, with 2 home runs tonight. That being and Mr. Trent Grisham with his 33rd home run of the year. Laureano smacks his 24th home run of the year to left and increases the Padres' lead, gives them the insurance they're looking for. 7-4 would be the lead, and 7-4 would be the final. In the bottom of the ninth, Brett Beatty would get on there with a leadoff single that we would see to Laureano to left, believe it or not. Then, after an Alvarez ground out, Vientos would have ground out. Lindor then would have walked. So the time runners are on base for Juan Soto. And Juan Soto, who we're looking to see, can he have that Soto-esque moment of the ninth inning to tie this ball game? He cannot, as he would line out back to the pitcher, and that does it there for the ball game. The Mets go on to lose this one 7-4. They did not hit a lick with runners in scoring position today, as a matter of fact, and the Mets now are just 4 games above 500 this season, just trying to stay afloat there in the wild card race. If you guys haven't already, continue to smash that like and subscribe on your way in. I greatly appreciate that, and let me know all your biggest takeaways and your continued thoughts here from tonight's very deflating loss here to the San Diego Padres. It's a continuation of more of the same with this team. I don't know how else to call it. When we look at David Peterson today, again, I didn't hate what I saw from David today. I think that's what pisses me off most about his final line, because I really was hoping to gas up the fact that, David Peterson went 5 or 6 solid innings for us. There is finally we have something going there, things to be happy about. But that was short-lived, my friends, and because of that, we have to now talk about what Peterson had with his arsenal today. And again, I did not love the outcome. I liked everything up until we saw the end of the ball game. But once we got to the end of the ball game, we had ourselves some greater problems. What is with nothing in my effing computer loading today? They just want to cause problems. They really do. They're like, you know what, Wardy, let's go ahead and make this even more of a drag for you, as if you were looking forward to talking about the latest Mets loss today. And that is exactly what my computer has to do right now. So I apologize for that, everybody. Baseball Savant, I need you right now. Where are you, baby? You're right here. Good to see you. All right. David Peterson, sinker, 40% of his arsenal today. Topped out 94 in the velocity, sat 92, and was right around 2,000 to 2,100 on the RPMs. The changeup, 19% of the arsenal utilized by Peterson today. Topped out 87 on the gun, sat right around 85, and was right around 14 to 1,500 on the RPMs. The slider, which he threw 19% of the arsenal, topped out 86, sat 85, and was right around 22 to 2,300 on the RPMs. The curveball at 12% of the arsenal, topped at 82, sat right around 80, and was also right around 2,400 on the RPMs. Four-seam fastball, 11% of the arsenal. Topped out 94, sat 91. Was right around 92 there, and that was right around 2,000 on the RPMs. All in all, David Peterson today, I have to give, I'm sorry, I can't go any higher than a 3.5 out of 10. He would have gotten a far higher grade if he gave the Mets 5 innings of, say, 1 earned run or 2 earned run baseball, because he didn't give up a lot of hard contact. The only hard contact that Peterson basically gave up all game today was the ultimate demise and the worst home run he could have possibly gave up. A grand slam, that is not good. And yeah, his fastball sitting 90 to 91 is not good as well. I agree. It's sitting right around 92 is a little low today, as a matter of fact. And the big thing that I have a problem with Peterson is that he's a guy that I think could be so far more dominant than what he currently is on the mound. And he's not. And that's because he doesn't utilize his four-seam fastball at all. He doesn't go up and in on batters, nor does he go up and away either. That could really bode himself well, I think, to get more swing and miss. But he's a heavy ground ball pitcher, as we know, and the ground balls just were not enough today, because that long ball by Machado is exactly why he has an ERA right around 4 now. Cameron says, as a Padres fan, could have sworn you were winning about that after that absurd base running error with Diaz and Arraez. I thought, yeah, it was ridiculous. Plus, in your Soto shot, your lineup's way scarier versus Arizona, San Fran, Cincy. You deserve a wild card spot, in my opinion. I appreciate that, Cameron, but here's the context behind why there's a counter with that. And the counter with why the Mets maybe aren't as deserving to be in this spot as we otherwise would hope is the Mets have had the 4th, if not 5th worst record in baseball going back to mid-June. And this is something that we've harped on every single night, but it holds true because the Mets continue to find ways to lose. Do I think that they're starting to take steps in the right direction with their play lately? I do. And I think that there have been more things encouraging than discouraging in this series thus far against the Padres. I think that is absolutely correct and a fact. Having said that, though, this team still has so much more groundwork to make up. And when you only have a week and a half left this season, how much groundwork are you really going to be able to get done in ample time? And the simple answer to that is little to none. It's all about controlling what's right in front of you. What's right in front of this Mets team right now is to just win ball games. That's why securing the series is so vital. Securing the series tomorrow is far more important to the Mets than it's to the Padres. And it's not just because the Padres are 5 games up on the Mets right now in the wild card, as it is what has been the trend of the Mets and the Padres. Even with the Padres' offensive struggles that they've had in the second half, they've still been a far superior team this year. It's been headlined by a rotation that, yes, while they've had their ailments, their bullpen has been so damn good, even with Jason Adam and his injury, that will keep them afloat until the very end. The Padres, their offense, we know, can be very fickle, but they have all the pieces there to make something happen. Just a matter of Nando playing at his best, getting the acquisitions to really step up, and more the Ryan O'Hearns and the Ramon Laureanos like we saw, Manny being Manny like he's supposed to be, Xander being competent, what's an absolutely terrible contract that we all know. Padres fans know it very well, as a matter of fact. And a Jackson Merrill, who has not been the same in his sophomore year since dealing with ailment this season, to be more of what they're hoping to get from his rookie campaign. If those things can come together, the Padres are one of the biggest forces to be reckoned with out of any team in the National League. And for the Mets, they have all the offensive potential in the world, but that potential has stayed at potential. The way that's blossomed was still in the month of August, in which they were 6 games below 500, 11-17, which was the best offensive month in Mets team franchise history, mind you. So even with the best offense on paper across Major League Baseball, it still was far from enough to secure continued winning ways. This Mets team will live and die by the sword, and that sword is most certainly their starting staff and what the status of their pitching is here in the Big 2025. So speaking of the pitching, that is what you guys got from there. I'm going to give, again, Peterson a 3.5 out of 10. And the bullpen today, knowing they only allowed one singular run across 4 innings, the bullpen's going to get a rock solid 7.5 out of 10 today. I thought they were very good. Ryan Helsley to have a scoreless inning was, again, notable, something that we should take into account. My camera going out of focus is also notable for how much of a schmuck it's deciding to be. So give me 1 second as I try to figure that out. Come on now. There we go. All right. It just has to play these games. Oh, okay. That's great. Thought I had it fixed. I guess not. Can we focus now? There we go. All right. Mets offense. This is how the ballgame ended, not how the ballgame started. That's why Vientos was in there as a pinch hitter at the end of the ballgame. This Mets team, as I mentioned, had offense tonight, but not enough. They were out hit by the Padres 12-9, and they had an expected batting average of 308, which wasn't bad, but the Padres were even better, a 343. So the Padres were due, honestly, to win this ballgame by the accounts of their offense. And the Mets today were 1 for 4 from Lindor with a walk, a 264 average, and a 793 OPS. Soto with the solo bomb, 261 average, 920 OPS. 41 home runs now in the year and counting for Soto. One more, and he now has a career high. Alonso, 2 for 4 with his 36th home run of the year, 270 average, 864 OPS. Nimmo, 0 for 261 average, 762 OPS. Marte, 1 for 4 with a run score, 275 average, 769 OPS. McNeil, 0 for. Jeff not getting a hit today stuck out a lot more than otherwise would have, and it really was because I know how important Jeff is in the heart of this Mets lineup right now. When he's not producing, it's a problem because he's a really good balance of your home runs from your gap to gap and slap hitting. That is more of what Jeff can bring for you when he's right. But lately, he has been a bit more streaky. 253 average, 770 OPS. Brett Beatty, 3 for 4 today. Great game. What the double is 13th of the year. 259 average, 762 OPS. Alvarez, his 9th home run of the year. Oppo Taco was the case. 255 average, 775 OPS. Mullins 0 for 2 with a stolen bag. 219 average, 701 OPS. His 22nd stolen bag of the season. And Vientos 0 for 1, who came in as a pinch hitter. 237 average, 719 OPS. And that is what you got from the Mets offense today. This camera, dude, you got to relax, buddy. I just need you to stay focused for a couple more minutes, and you can't even do that for me. Come on. There we go. Okay. You really have to wonder what's going on with Hefner and the entire pitching staff collapse. I really don't have much wondering when it comes to what's been going wrong with the Mets pitching staff collapse. And as a matter of fact, I don't think that there is a single baseball fan out there that should be genuinely surprised on how we've gotten to where we've gotten when it comes to the pitching. Because all it takes is some paying attention to what has been right in front of us since the start of the season as to what has went wrong with this rotation. And it's one word, everybody: injuries. Injuries, injuries, injuries. That alone is why this Mets team is where they're at. Sure, you can make the rightful arguments about how David Stern sat on his hands and didn't do enough heading into the season after we saw Montas go down with ailment in spring training, Manaea as well. Sure, you can make the counters on how you would have liked Noah McLean called up a month sooner than what he otherwise was at minimum, and maybe a further consideration for one in Brandon Sproat. Who knows how much of a needle mover they would have been if they were brought up earlier. We're never going to know those things. But what we do know is that when the Mets rotation and bullpen has the following injuries that they've had, starting from Frankie Montas to Sean Manaea to AJ Minter and Danny Young, both being out for the season within the first 2 months of the year, mind you, for their bullpen. Their two most reliable lefty options, mind you, set them back greatly in that regard early on. That's why they continue the carousel of so many other schmucks, from Genesis Cabrera to even Jose Castillo for a while, and the list goes on and on, you name it. So the rotation of Kodai Senga going down with injury. That same week, a couple days later, Tyler McGill going down with injury, and he's never going to pitch again for the Mets this year, mind you. His brother's also down with injury for the Brewers, so I'm feeling for the entire McGill family. Julie, if you see this, I love you, and I'm wishing the best for those guys to get better and heal up. It sucks to see that happen. To see not only that happen, then to see Griffin Canning rupture his Achilles, then to see every aspect of this Mets rotation basically go down an ailment at some point. With the exception of Clay Holmes and David Peterson, everybody and their mother has dealt with ailment. And when you have a rotation, and a six-man rotation, that's dealt with this much verity, this much injuries, this much inconsistency, this is exactly why you shouldn't be surprised here. The bullpen has been taxed terribly that we have seen for the vast majority of the year. Guess how many teams have more innings pitched than this Mets bullpen since June? That's right, you guessed correctly, none. Because the Mets have utilized their bullpen more than anyone else. And the reason why the Mets have utilized their bullpen more than anyone else is because they've had a rotation that, again, has provided you no length. I kind of want to pull my hair out sometimes when I talk about these things. Not that it's an overly sensitive topic, but it hits home for me because I've said this nonsense on a daily basis for literally the past 2 months. It's really getting tiring at this point. It really is. And that's why I'm not going to drag out this post-game show too long today. I'm thinking in my mind, how do I want to go about content tomorrow? The Mets play at 1 o'clock. There's a bunch of topics I really want to talk about that I think we should talk about. I just really hope you guys check that video out because I have a feeling I'm going to record that video and I'm going to drop it at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. I might even go to a little bit earlier, but it's not going to get many eyes because, one, the Mets lost again, and two, there's not a whole lot to be happy about right now, and three, the day game is at 1, so that game is going to be over at a good time, midday, and then the algorithm is going to throw everything off. So I don't know for certain if we're going to have a video that drops tomorrow in the AM, but I may pull for one. I didn't do one today, and I'm glad I didn't because some of the topics I was planning on discussing already were outdated. We have a lot of things that we have to talk about, including the return of Luis Torrens, Tyrone Taylor's timetable, in which we have clarity on that to a degree. Kodai Senga, what to expect with him, obviously, as we want to wait to see what he's going to do. And I will, of course, break down from being in person, from Senga's final AAA start there in the Lehigh Valley, Iron Pigs Stadium, Coca-Cola Park, if you know, you know, there in A-Town. That'll be fun. Hopefully, I'll enjoy myself that evening. Hopefully, the Syracuse Mets give me something to be happy about a little bit more than the Mets tomorrow. Unless the Metsies win big, and then maybe they do too, and I'll be a happy camper. Either way, be on the lookout. It's definitely going to be interesting. And yes, I agree that the Mets lineup could absolutely be dragging their feet tomorrow because of it. Just record it and play it back so you don't have to keep saying it. You're 100% right. If that was the case, I would just be replaying the same post-game shows that I've recorded time and time again for you guys this year. I could have just replayed a post-game show that I recorded a month and a half for you guys and would have been verbatim the same thing that I'm saying right now in regards to the Mets pitching issues this season. That's how exhausting and how consistently inconsistent this team has been on that front. So I think Helsley's starting to really look fixed. Lounzinger, if I'm being completely honest, and Rose, have a great night. Thank you for chiming in. I appreciate that. Your guess is as good as mine. I can't sit here in confidence and tell you that Helsley got everything figured out, because with my luck, I'm going to go ahead and say that, and then his ass is going to get rocked as soon as tomorrow. It's a wait and see in regards to Helsley if we can find consistency. But yes, today he looked good. Now we just need to see if something like that is actually going to continue. So, final thing that I have to relay to each and every one of you before we get out of here is a fun little statistic from yesterday, as a matter of fact. Teammates in Major League Baseball history to each have 105 plus runs, 25 or more home runs, and 35 stolen bags or more. You have the 1996 Rockies of Ellis Burks and Dante Bichette, Bo's father, as well as the 2025 Mets and Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto. As we mentioned throughout the season, there have been positives to look forward to, most certainly. Emerson, happy birthday, my friend. I'm so sorry that came on a Mets loss today, seriously. But I hope they've had a really good birthday, all things considered, with this little wrinkle not being much more than a wrinkle, that is this Mets defeat today. Thank you so much again for chiming in. I appreciate you greatly. But this Mets offense, they've had a lot of great individual performances. They've had a lot of things to be happy about in bunches, but they have not had anything again in unison, which is why we're all exhausted here talking about the same thing on a nightly basis. Stearns does have to behave like a big market GM and stop argument shopping. I agree with you, Michael. And something that I did not give him as much pushback for entering the season as something in hindsight now I most certainly am, because it's a results-oriented business, and the results haven't been there for this team. And David knows where he's at fault. He knows that he's far from perfect, and we're going to talk more about his imperfections as well as this team's imperfections, what they can do right before it's too late, if it's not too late yet, and our content dropping in the next 24 to 48 hours. So at minimum tomorrow, we will have post-game content as well as maybe some other form. At maximum, you will get an AM video, post-game show, and what you will for certain get tomorrow is a recap of what we just broke down today, basically. And all you guys need to do to check out the recap is to simply head over to the Bleacher Report app and type Mets. Scroll down and you're going to come across thumbnails that look exactly like this. This was me breaking down the Mets victory from their game 1 against the Padres yesterday. Now you're going to see the thumbnail from tonight, which is the Mets losing. They have to recap in a 2 or 3 minute fashion. I'm going to record here in literally a second once I'm done hanging up the phone on each and every one of you. So check me out there in the Bleacher Report app, everybody. Check me out with my reoccurring segments that I've done with the New York Post Sports YouTube channel and will continue to do so. Outside of that, thank you so much for spending some of your day, night, evening with your guy, Wardy. I really do appreciate that. Shout out to Moonshadow, great member in here. Rebecca, Patrick, my guy, PB9. PB, check your email. I made sure to reach out there from what you stayed last. Dave, my guy, thank you so much for everything you sent my way. We'll definitely be talking again more in the near future. To all my live and recurring members, thank you so much. Everybody watching live on a replay, thank you so much for hitting that like and subscribe on. This is our latest Mets post-game show. Mets falter 7-4, and they look to salvage, and not only salvage a series, but secure a series victory with a young whippersnapper of a right-hander, Jonathan, trying to right the ship after what was a absolutely brutal last time out there. We'll wait and see what happens. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And as always, no matter what, let's go Mets. Peace out, folks.